Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being with me here today. I am here with James Gregson from Lego. He is the creative director digital for the Lego agency, which is part of the Lego brand. So we're going to learn a whole lot of interesting things here today. I happen to bring some Lego.
There
Obviously,
you go.
not something I built myself, but it's here. So James, tell us a little bit about yourself and about your role.
Yeah, sure. Gosh, where to start? So a little bit about myself. I graduated college some time ago. We don't need to qualify when it was, with a major in computer animation and a minor in painting.
Oh wow.
Clearly, I don't do either of those things now. I never did after college. I was not much of an academic. Really didn't like anything to do with school, to be very honest, but was hardworking. I think I had good ethics in
Mm.
that sense. Hardworking, was always curious, and interested in the creative field. Um, I hopped around a bunch, and long story short, got a job at Lego. Previously, I was part of their social media team,
Mm.
which was across everything from strategy, community management, paid media, um, analytics, all that sort of stuff. And Lego, like a lot of large corporations, had gone through several restructurings. And the sort of social media team was broken up into various departments and moved into various existing departments
Mm.
uh, to scale more effectively. I won't go into more details than that. So now I'm part of our internal creative agency, which is sort of a bit of a trendy thing these days. Big brands like Apple and Spotify, Chobani, all have these sort of internal agencies for various reasons. But Lego's internal agency has been about 5 or 6 years in the making, I believe.
Wow. So,
Yep.
so the creative agency is basically a marketing agency that would then get like proposals from different departments, and you just
Yeah.
act as kind of an independent organization.
Yes, exactly. I mean, we daren't call our marketing partners clients because we all get paid by the same company and
Right.
all want things to perform similarly, and they can't fire us. Uh, our clients can't fire us, of course. We could
Yeah.
get fired. But yeah, I think the purpose of having an internal creative agency is about hiring people internally within the same building that are able to act and react very quickly,
Yeah.
while also having all of the needed knowledge that one needs, creatively and otherwise for a brand.
Oh, that's
So
fabulous.
it's a lot less expensive an endeavor than bringing on an external agency and sort of all the nuances there.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Thank you. So today we're going to talk about new product development and launches using social media. So the first thing I'd like to maybe get a little bit of understanding from you on the approach that you guys would use at Lego is what kind of principles or what principles would you consider when working through the launch of a product or service through development and design and actually launching the product?
Cool. Meaty question.
I mean,
Okay.
and in 3 minutes, I'd like you to answer that.
I think, listen, there's a host of considerations. I think specifically for me, my team is tasked with creating the content, right, in support of those products or in support of
Yeah.
those occasions or very basically in support of a brief. So for me, I'm always conscious about making sure that we're serving all audiences. Now, when I say all audiences, obviously within various creative briefs and various product launches, they have a focused, you know, audience target. But typically, there are nuances within that audience segment, right? So across high affinity, low affinity, or low to no affinity, across that sort of affinity spectrum.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that we always try to consider is, producing content across that affinity spectrum, because one piece of content for a high affinity consumer is not and should not be the same piece of content for that low affinity consumer.
Right.
right? The high affinity consumer is going to be that person that's going to look into that 7-minute YouTube video that shows every product feature, with the Lego designer, for example.
Yeah.
Whereas, our no affinity audience, our low to no affinity audience, is very unlikely going to take that deep cut and seek out a piece of long form content. They're looking for, you know, an image or an image carousel or something that brings that product to mind. So I talk a lot about that sort of affinity spectrum and making sure that we're considering all affinity levels on that content output. Um,
And is that related to most primarily to the age of the person who's playing with it?
um, Not always, because we don't market to kids. That would be illegal. We predominantly are marketing to shoppers and parents. But I think that that audience, as I said, from a high affinity standpoint, right? If you certainly look at a Lego collector, for example,
Right.
who may want to buy a product, they don't need they may not need well they do not need the same type of content as someone who hasn't bought a Lego product in a month
Yeah.
or a year
Yeah.
or several years. And I think it's making sure that you're considering there's a strong consideration across all those different interest levels of your brand, and making sure you're serving content across those interest levels.
Yeah. That's fascinating. And so when you're communicating to the audience of low or no affinity, you're keeping your
Mm.
content pretty simple with
Yeah.
just pictures and kind of promoting just kind of a cool new toy that's coming out.
Yeah, I mean, I think we also we obviously we're looking at distribution plans and the audiences across
Yeah.
those digital platforms, like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, whatever it may be, and yeah, it's Facebook, Instagram, all these platforms have done a fantastic job of creating ad units and formats that sort of buy into that sort of attention span, or that, that level of desire to go deep,
Yeah.
right? So you're not going to create, a canvas ad or an instant experience ad, as they're now called on Facebook, for that low affinity audience. You may create that for your high affinity audience.
Right.
For that low affinity audience, you're looking at carousels, you're looking at, GIFs, you're looking at very short form video as a way to grab that attention and then potentially retarget them with other content.
And when launching new products, are you guys often using paid advertising on social platforms, or are you typically using?
Almost always, yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
always.
also native content on your social pages?
Yes, it's very much a balance for us. I think that's where, again, there's that spectrum of, a lot of brands have made the statement of paid only,
Yeah.
and doing paid only. I think we're a little lucky being Lego that, we're sort of a pretty mutually exclusively loved brand in that sense.
Yeah.
So people want to hear what we have to say. People want to see what we're creating. So, we have this sort of organic and paid perspective across everything that we push out,
Right.
right? It's not just about boosting a piece of content. It may be about, these are our paid assets and this is our organic asset
Yeah.
that we're gonna push out around a given, occasion or product.
So does it affect your day-to-day job because you're considered a fun brand, you're doing like cool stuff, people are like, "Oh wow, Lego." Does that actually change the day-to-day operation of creating content for you and your team?
I mean, the principles are all the same, right? I think, listen, I am very lucky and very aware of what I get to do on a day to day basis, right? I think there are product values and, elements of working at Lego that obviously make our job a lot easier,
Yeah.
and a lot more desirable from that standpoint. I will tell you, the job before this I had was working for a dental device business.
I was actually
Uh,
if you ever sold motor oil or something like that. So
No, I was selling braces. I was selling braces. I was basically, it was a competitor to Invisalign.
okay.
But the same principles applied, right? I was their director of marketing, and I was marketing to consumers, patients, and or potential patients and dentists, And the principles still apply, right? You have an insight, you have a business goal. How can you create, at a very basic level, content to bring, in the braces example, bring patients in down that funnel to sign up and get braces?
Yeah.
And then how can you do that with dentists? Now, don't get me wrong, I was looking at before and afters of straight teeth,
Right.
right? And speaking to dentists who, not for nothing, very kind people, they are not the sharpest marketers in the world,
Yeah.
but it is finding joy, and I always talk about this. It's finding joy in identifying the challenge and coming up with the solution,
Yeah.
um, and that doesn't always have to be with colorful bricks that everyone loves playing with and that I was obsessed with as a kid.
Oh, yes, as was I. I mean, it's easy, right? Like my mom kept all my Lego, and now my kids play for it. Play
Yep,
with it.
yep.
In comic
You know,
book.
it's one of those. It is a. I always say the 8-year-old version of myself does not appreciate the job that I have.
So, do you consider network externalities when you're developing new products and how that might influence the success of the product moving forward?
I don't think it necessarily impacts our product. I think we are, listen, we've had a very good track record of product development,
Yeah.
right? And I think there is certainly an element of, if it's not broken, let's not fix it.
Mm.
But there's a considerable, the reason it's been so successful, and I can't speak to too much about the product development process. That is an entire, very large department
Yeah.
in of itself. Um, but they have iterated and innovated every single time they push out product, right? At a very basic level. Um, I don't know this for sure, but I believe every single major product that we push out has a new design element,
Wow.
a new brick,
Yeah.
like, to an extent, or a new technique that has never been used in an official Lego product before.
Wow.
And that is something, like, that speaks to the desire of doing that. This speaks to the desire of that team, that iteration and product development is just at the core of what we do.
Yeah. That's fabulous. So, how and when can social media be an effective tool for stimulating demands? If you're launching a new product, can you leverage your content creation to get people excited about a product?
You absolutely can. You absolutely can. I think I would flip that a little bit. So yeah, the short answer is yes, you can. That's absolutely the intention. And that's absolutely the expectation of what we do.
Yeah.
Um, I think there's a balance there, as I talked about with affinities, that um, those that see your content are your fans most of the time, right? Of course, the gold standard with any social content is shareability. You want it to be shared,
Right.
but that is not an objective that you can bake into your creative process. That is just an outcome of really good creative,
Yeah.
or a really good product, and the combination of those two. Um, what I would say on the flip side is, um, social media can sometimes drive demand so much that we have to turn it off,
Really.
right? And we need to pull back on the marketing because we can't um, satisfy the demand.
Wow.
And that's happened a few times where, demand is so high that we have this great social media marketing plan with a series of content in support of it, and we have to pull the plug because we don't have enough product.
What
Um,
product would that be?
what I can't say the specific product, but that's happened a number of times, and there is absolutely a goal to try and have the right supply and demand process,
Yeah.
but we stay very close to our supply chain, in that standpoint, in our Lego brand retail team, to make sure that the amount of product warrants the amount of media and marketing investment that we have.
Wow.
And frankly, to be very honest, that's an impossible measure because it's so hard to tell, what's going to be a smash success and what's not.
Yeah, I would imagine. And are you seeing a movement into marketing to more adults who maybe aren't the collector of Lego?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. There's a series of product lines. I mean, listen, we are, one would say greedy, another person would say strategic, in the fact that we are expanding our audience, right? We don't want to be a product for kids. We know we're not just a product for kids, hence I don't just work for them.
Yeah.
I build that stuff too. Um,
Cool.
but there are a number of products that are very specifically targeted for adults,
Yeah.
right? You can look at the Rome Colosseum set. That's like the biggest set we ever built.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, a kid might want to build that, but that is not the target core consumer.
Right.
That is the core consumer is the person that wants to build that and put it on their desk.
Yeah. That's fascinating. Wow.
Yeah.
And so, so in order to see growth in the marketplace, in your social media platforms, who are you seeing that you're attracting now to follow you on Instagram or Twitter or whatever platforms you guys are using?
Um, COVID dramatically, and I feel guilty saying this, positively impacted our business.
Right.
With so many people stuck at home
Yeah.
with things looking to do, we've had the greatest year of our entire brand history
Wow.
last year, and that seems to continue. We brought in what I assume, and we brought in a large number of adults, what we deem as adults. And adult new consumers. So that's someone that hasn't bought a Lego product, that's over 18, that's not bought a Lego product in the last 12 months.
Right.
And that's huge for us because that's obviously a whole segment, a whole new audience that we get to re-engage and reactivate.
Yeah.
Like the assumption is, and we don't know this for a fact, although there's research being done on that audience, that they once played with Lego as a kid, went through COVID lockdown and was like, I need some puzzles, I probably need a lot of alcohol, and I need some Lego, right?
And it's nostalgic, right? And you loved it as a kid, and I mean, one of my favorite things about being like a parent is playing Lego with my kids and building the new things that they get for their birthdays or Christmas. And I think I probably enjoy the building of the Lego more than they do because I almost don't let them do it.
I won't give you parenting advice, but yeah, I mean, listen, like it's not, you don't need to be rocket science to understand the value proposition of a product like ours in an environment like COVID, where the knee jerk reaction is, go watch something on TV, go play video games, watch your iPad. We all had so much time, I would say, I don't want to say free time, but we all had so much more time on our hands that even that to some extent was being outlasted, right? Like, those are my friends who don't have kids. Bless them. I'll trade you. Um, they were like begging, they read hundreds of books and watched every Netflix show possible. And I was like, hey man, go buy some Lego and, listen to some new music, and like that'll take your mind into, maybe a different, maybe a better place, in that time. And I think that was a lot of the insight and data that we got, from the leading puzzle manufacturer. The name of the company slips my mind, but their sales were 410%, increased over COVID, which makes total sense. I did 3 puzzles over COVID, and I've got no free time. But it was that sort of
Incredible.
peaceful Zen like experience that we were all trying to seek out.
Yeah. I just want to end with one question. What is it about being the creative director in digital for Lego that you love the most?
Wow. Okay. So I think I'll answer this. It's going to be a long answer. First of all, I think I can't deny working for a brand like Lego that has such strong values, and its core value proposition of, inspiring builders of tomorrow and giving kids, you know, a physical tool that empowers them creatively. Um, that makes you feel warm and fuzzy.
Yeah.
Never thought that that would be a critical thing to me
Yeah.
for a job, and maybe that's more insight into me as an individual than I need to share. But so that is undoubtedly something that makes you excited about your job every day.
Right.
I think from a creative digital standpoint, this is, I never woke up one day and said, like, I want to work at Lego. That would be the job I want to do. But I played with Lego as a kid. You know, my most of my childhood fondest memories with my father was playing with Lego. So it's a bit of a pinch yourself moment that I get to create digital content, for one of the most sought after brands in the world. So um, it's nothing that I did, I'll say, and it's more about the intrinsic values of the brand that I'm, humbled to be a part of.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I really appreciate you being with me here today. This has been a super fascinating conversation. James, I hope that you continue to just rock this brand because it's such a cool brand to work for and such a great pleasure just to chat with you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Thanks.
Thank you.